Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, and Patreon, and contact Dayspring Discussions on the Facebook group, Twitter account, and dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. Well, hello everyone, hope you all are enjoying your Tuesday. It is quite lovely here in Austin, Texas. The sun has decided to come out. It's going to get a little warmer today, little break from that chilly weather we've been having last week, but of course I think it's going to get a little bit colder in the next couple days, so go out, enjoy the day while you can, and get ready to enjoy some goody geeky goodness. Okay guys, there is a lot to talk about today. Last week, of course, I had a regular show on Tuesday, and then I did one of my Star Wars saga reviews with my wife Lisa, and those were kind of the two shows I did last week. But Tuesday night, a bunch of news came out in regards to HBO MAX and what they're going to be bringing, so I'm going to talk about that. Of course, Terminator Dark Fate, I'm going to talk about in a minute. You got the Witcher trailer that came out that looks pretty dope. You also have His Dark Materials that premiered last night on HBO. It's so much. I mean, honestly, it's so much. Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, Ant-Man 3, Game of Thrones series. My tabs are full of stuff to talk about today, guys. So I don't know what I'm going to get to. I'm going to try to get to as much as I possibly can because I feel like I just am running behind. So I'm just going to get into it, start her off, and we'll see where we land. So, of course, first off, like I said, Lisa and I going through the Star Wars saga, watching every film in chronological order. This week we're on Solo, a Star Wars story. Normally we watch those the Sunday, but we didn't get a chance to do that. I think we're probably going to do that tonight, and then of course sometime this week I'll get my Solo review out. Speaking of Star Wars, we also have a Journey to the Rise of Skywalker novel that came out today, Star Wars Resistance Reborn. Now this is being written by Rebecca Roanhorse. I think I said her last name right, probably not. Anyway, she has written a science fiction fantasy novels called The Sixth World. This is her first Star Wars novel. I don't read the books. I listen to them on Audible. That's what me and my wife do. So I started chapter 1 earlier, and I gotta say, so far it's pretty good. Takes place on the Millennium Falcon just a few days after the events of The Last Jedi. Leia gets contacted by Infernal Squad, and then her and Rey sit down to talk about Kylo Ren. Then she gets contacted by Poe and Black Squadron. A lot of references that are non-movie references in there, referring to Infernal Squad and Black Squadron. So I'm enjoying that. I hope I enjoy the book, of course. You guys, go check it out. Let me know what you think. Usually it takes me about a week or so to go through an audiobook. It's read by Mark Thompson, who does a lot of the Star Wars audiobooks, and really enjoy the voices he does. I love his Thrawn voice. That's my favorite. But I'm looking forward to this. It seems like it's going to be the main book for, Journey to the Rise of Skywalker. I know there are other things as far as comics and junior novels and other stuff like that, but this seems to be the main one. And like I said, so far I'm just through chapter 1, and it seems pretty cool. But you guys check it out. Let me know what you think, and we'll compare notes. Okay, moving on to our next subject. I honestly don't know where to begin. I guess I'll start off with maybe the most recent thing. Last night, the HBO BBC series His Dark Materials premiered on HBO. I sat down and watched it. Now, this is based off a trilogy of books that have been pretty big. Now, the first one was called Northern Lights, came out in 1995. Now, originally there was a movie based off the first book, but in North America they called it The Golden Compass, not Northern Lights. Had Daniel Craig in it and Nicole Kidman, which I actually enjoyed a little bit. I mean, it wasn't phenomenal, but it was, during the whole young adult book craze that Twilight and Harry Potter started, where everyone was trying to get that young adult book series going into a movie. And, it kind of fell flat, but I enjoyed it a little bit. But now it looks like they're dipping their toes and making it a series. It's one of those things where you have 3 books, and I get turning it into a series is fine, but like with Game of Thrones, you basically had one season per book. You've only got 3 books, so if you only have 3 seasons, that's fine with me. One of the things that, again, I enjoyed about Game of Thrones versus a show like Walking Dead, where the creators actually envisioned a beginning, a middle, and an end. They didn't just let it keep going until, it pretty much died out and ran out of story ideas. Anyway, some notable cast members. You got Daphne Keane as the main character, as Lyra. Now, most people know her as playing Laura in the X-Men spin-off film Logan. She's the star of this one. You have Ruth Wilson, who I believe was in that Showtime show as The Affair. She's playing Marissa, kind of the bad guy of it all. You got James McAvoy, Professor X himself, in there as Lord Asriel. And then also you have Lin-Manuel Miranda in there. I forget the name of his character because he wasn't in the first episode. I know he's coming in it too. But overall, my first impression, it was okay. It's one of those things now where HBO, I'm watching Silicon Valley, I'm watching Watchmen, and now I got something else to watch on there. I'll give it a shot. It's one of those things that I think is right up my alley as far as the fantasy genre, as long as they, keep it smart and keep it interesting. I think that's something Watchmen has done, especially in the latest episode of Watchmen, episode 3, kind of changed it up a little bit, made it a little more intriguing to where they're dangling us along. It's slow burn, but I'm enjoying it, honestly. With this one, I hope it's kind of the same thing. Like I said, if they want to take the whole first season from the first book, which is pretty much the Golden Compass movie, if I remember correctly, that's fine. Give me some character development. I wasn't thrilled with what the characters were in this first episode, but again, it's a first episode. It's an introduction to the world and the characters. I'm going to stick it out for a couple more episodes, probably at least to the end of the season, more than likely, and then, see how it goes. A friend of mine, she says it's her favorite book series, so she was super excited about that. I'm not sure how she felt about the first episode. I know she just wanted a lot of people to watch this because she was such a fan of the books. But maybe I'll ask her what her thoughts are from her perspective. If you haven't checked it out, or if you have, fire back on the social media groups Gmail account. Let me know what you think about HBO's His Dark Materials. Okay, now speaking of books, we got a new trailer for the upcoming Netflix series The Witcher, starring Henry Cavill. This is based off the fantasy novels written by Polish author something I can't pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. But anyway, it was a series of novels, and in this world, there are beast hunters who develop supernatural abilities at a young age to battle wild beasts and monsters. And this saga has been turned into video games and graphic novels, and now, of course, you're hitting up a TV series on Netflix starring Superman himself. I checked out this trailer, of course, and it came out last week, and I was around the dinner table when I was watching it. My wife and my daughter were a little distracting, so I watched it, and yeah, it looked kind of cool. Well, just a few minutes ago, I went back to rewatch it. And I'll be damned if this doesn't look freaking awesome, okay? This is exactly up my alley. Fantasy, swordplay, magic. I'm all about the sword and sandal films, so this awesome Henry Cavill, who I thought was a good Superman, despite, the scripts and the films he were given, I thought he did a good job portraying the Man of Steel. I like him as an actor. Especially, I'm a big fan of the man from U.N.C.L.E. He was in the newest Mission Impossible film, which actually I thought was the best Mission Impossible film since the very first one. I like him as an actor, so I'm cheering for him. Whether he's Superman or not, I don't think that's, going to happen now, but, that's another story. I think I've already talked about that for quite a bit, but this looks awesome. This looks exactly what I want, and, a lot of studios, they're all looking for the next Game of Thrones. Not only a sense of like a fantasy tale that's popular, but also as a water cooler show. A show that everyone Monday morning sits around and talks about the latest episode and how good it was, or how mysterious it was, or what they think's going to happen next. The water cooler show, as they say it. And, I don't think we've gotten that yet. I don't think this is going to be it, mainly because Netflix, they released the whole season at once, which I'm not a big fan of. I'd much rather go week for week. But just this show in general, I think looks really good. Looks exactly kind of the thing that I like. Storyline, all that stuff. So I'm very interested. One thing though too, of course, as I was watching it or rewatching it a few minutes ago, there was that one part where the woman came up to Henry Cavill and she was talking about, I thought you would have fangs or horns. And he's like, I file them down. And if you look behind him, I went back and I paused, I looked behind him, there's like an orgy going on behind him. I mean, seriously, go back, pause it. There's a bunch of naked people doing some stuff behind them. This just looks right up my alley. I never read the books. I really know nothing about the video games or any of that stuff. I might check out the graphic novels because, I'm a comic book reader, so graphic novels be more my thing. But honestly, I think I'm going to wait for the TV series to watch this. Comes out December 20th, officially the same day as Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Technically, it comes out on the 19th. So it's going to be a busy weekend for me, of course, just in time for the holidays. So families, or at least parents, can gather around and watch Henry Cavill. I think maybe I get my wife into this one, perhaps. She thinks Henry Cavill is really hot. So maybe I can get her to watch this with me. She likes, Lord of the Rings and fantasy style stuff. She didn't like Game of Thrones. But I think maybe I can get her into this one. We'll have to wait and see about that, guys. But if you've checked out the newest Witcher trailer, of course, fire back in the social media groups and Gmail account. Let me know what you think about it, because I think it looks badass. All right, guys. So let me just get to the main event right here. This weekend, the 6th Terminator film, Terminator Dark Fate, arrived in theaters. And like I said, it is the 6th film. It's been a rough road for the franchise. Everything after Terminator 2 hasn't been great. The film came out in 91. The next film, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, came out in 2003. And ever since then, the franchise has been on shaky ground, really. Now, every one of them has kind of said, oh, we're restarting from where Terminator 2 left off. And a lot of franchises have done that, taken their last really good one and, tried to restart from there. So, like Terminator Genesis, they said, forget Terminator Salvation, forget Terminator 3, we're the true sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Well, until it didn't do well. And now it's like, okay, well, Dark Fate is the true sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I went and saw the film, and I enjoyed it. I will honestly say it is the best Terminator film since Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I liked Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. I've seen it several times. Not a big fan of Salvation. Genesis was but I liked where Terminator 3 went when, at the end of it, they couldn't stop Judgment Day. And then Terminator Salvation was a sequel to that, where they were in the middle of the battle between man and machine and Skynet and all that. So it took it to a different place where Terminator Genesis and even Terminator Dark Fate kind of just went back and did the same thing, With this one, there was a couple different things. Of course, you got Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor. And just to let you know, guys, of course, I'm going to be talking some spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the film yet, pause, come back, and listen to this later. But, of course, the one thing was different about this one is at the very beginning of the film, John Connor dies. And I love the effects they did, too, where Linda Hamilton really looked like she did in 1991. So kudos to them. Edward Furlong, I'm not sure what they did, but that looked like Edward Furlong in 1991 too. And of course you had Arnold in there in that scene. And we come to find out that Skynet had not sent just one Terminator, the T-1000, but multiple Terminators back to find John and kill him. And one of them was successful. Years later, they meet up with that Terminator again, the one that actually killed John, and he had started a life for himself, even gotten a wife and raised a child, and become more human, I guess you would say. And that was one of those things I found interesting too. Was a Terminator has one mission, and it's an unstoppable machine. It doesn't stop until it accomplishes its mission, and that Terminator accomplished its mission. It killed John Connor. So what does it do after that? Does it just turn off? What happens afterwards? And I'm glad that this movie kind of answered that question a little bit. I like how they played with that. I also enjoyed, the other relationships with it. Linda Hamilton, as Sarah Connor, she lost her son. She lost pretty much her reason to live. And since then, she's been going around killing other Terminators that are supposed to be coming back. But I think, you need to deal with that question where I don't think they touched on it enough with her was, what does she do now that John is dead? Pretty much, machines take over. It's not Skynet. It's something called Legion now, is what is. And John Connor is no longer relevant. So Sarah Connor is no longer relevant. So what does she do now with her life now that she is irrelevant to what the future is to come? I don't feel like they touched on that enough. And then the main focus was on the characters of Grace and what's her name, Danny. And you come to find out Grace was a soldier in the future fighting the robots. She got injured and she volunteered to augment her body to make it part robotic so she could fight the robots easier, going back in time, trying to save the future savior, which is Danny. And, everyone's assuming, of course, much like Sarah, she was going to be the mother of the resistance leader. Nope, turns out Danny was the resistance leader, so they had that little twist in there, which, it's not that surprising, to be honest. You knew they had to do something different just besides, she was going to be the mother, because there's another person that it takes to, make a child, and there was a father somewhere in there. In Sarah's case, we knew who the father was. It was Kyle Reese. And Danny, there was no father. So it was kind of one of those questions where as I was watching the film, I was like, okay, well, she's going to be the mother. Where's the father? It doesn't make sense. He would have to be an important part too, I'm sure. So, when they revealed that Danny was the leader and not the mother of the leader, it wasn't that surprising, to be honest. So now we're dealing with time travel. We're dealing with multiple Terminators. Like they said, there were multiple Terminators that got sent back to try and kill John. Why was there only one T-1000? Maybe it was like a prototype. The other ones weren't ready yet, but once they were ready, why didn't they send those back? Obviously, they're a lot more effective than what the Arnold or the Model 101 is. So why do they keep sending the 101s back and not more T-1000s because they're a little more badass? I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But also in the case of, Danny, okay? Obviously, Skynet sent multiple Terminators back. Why didn't Legion send multiple Terminators back in time to kill Danny instead of just the one? They didn't explain why. I guess they kind of opened it up where like, Skynet sent multiple Terminators back. Great. Why didn't Legion do that? They could have easily kicked the crap out of Grace and Sarah and the 101 model if they had multiple of those Terminators, played by Gabriel Luna, aka Ghost Rider, or former Ghost Rider, I guess as you would call him. But why didn't they send multiples back? I don't know. But like I said, I enjoyed the film. Now, it didn't do so well, or at least not as well as they wanted it to this weekend. Made $29 million domestically, another 120 overseas. The film cost just a little under $200 million to make. I'm on this website called The Numbers, and it's $185 million to make. It's done 123. Most films make a majority of their money back that first weekend. And then, of course, it's $185 million, but you got to double that in regards to marketing for the film, too. So it's got to make about $400 million just to break even. It's not going to do that. They said this film is probably going to cost the studios, because Paramount was the main studio, but there were other studios involved in financing this. But it's going to cost altogether about $120 million loss, which sucks, because it's not this film's fault it's doing so poorly. I think it's the one of other films. And I've said this, to multiple people. I'm not sure if I've said it on here as much. But if a film that is like, say, third or fourth in a franchise on opening weekend, I don't think it shows you how good the film is. It shows you how good the previous film was, or how well the marketing was for the film. I think part of the reason some of the later Transformers films did so well, even though they sucked balls, was that the ones that came before it were good. The first couple of them, or at least the first film, was really great. Okay, so it had an established audience where they wanted to see more Transformers films, coming back hoping to see more of that goodness and just getting disappointed, which is eventually why it teetered off. That's what kind of happened with Terminator. People came to Terminator 3 hoping to see a good movie like Terminator 2. And while I think it's okay, it wasn't as good. Then they came to Terminator Salvation. Even worse. Terminator Genesis, depending on how you thought of it, even worse. So by the time you get to this film, Terminator Dark Fate, it's, people have lost their faith in the Terminator franchise, not to mention the fact that, again, this is just more of the same. This is just robot comes back to kill this person's protecting them, Arnold's in there. We know at the end the Terminators die. There was nothing new about this film, story-wise, except for the twist with Danny being the leader instead of the mother of the leader. And there are aspects of this film that I did enjoy. I think the main thing was the relationship between Danny and Grace, because when you look, through the flashbacks or flash forwards, however you want to look at them, Grace telling the story of what happens in the future, how she becomes an orphan, and how she is found and joins the Resistance. Later on, of course, you come to find out that Danny's the one that saved her, so she feels like she owes it to her. And then there's that part there at the end of the film where Danny goes up to a young Grace, and there's that moment. And, from when you look at the full spectrum of the film, you see the relationship between Danny and Grace and how, again, they saved each other. I thought that was very nice symbolism in there. So, again, this film is a decent film in my eyes. It does fall short on some plot holes and story points or character arcs, but for the most part, it is better than most of the other Terminator films. So, again, little disappointed it's not doing so well. Whether this means that, people are going to scrap the Terminator franchise, because if you look at sci-fi franchises, you got Aliens, Terminator, Predator. These are films that the more they come out, the less they make. So is it time for these 80s sci-fi franchises to just go away? Or is it the fact that all we do is get more of the same? It's the same shtick over and over again. That's kind of my problem with the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World franchise. It's kind of, for a while there, especially those first, two sequels after the original, it was just them on an island getting chased and eaten by dinosaurs. There was nothing different. Jurassic World changed it up a little bit. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom could say changed it up a little bit more, but really I'm more interested in the third Jurassic World film now that the dinosaurs are out in the world, because again, it's changing it up, it's evolving the storyline a little bit, not just more of the same. And that's what I think we need from these other franchises, is not just more of the same. We need something different, which is what I thought Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation did a good job of advancing the story of, the Terminator franchise, or John Connor story, whatever you want to call it. It was just the execution that some people weren't happy about, myself in general, because Terminator Salvation, in my eyes, I think could have been a really cool film, but it's my least favorite of the Terminator films. But anyway, your turn, guys. Terminator Dark Fate, what do you think of the film? Did you like it? Do you think it's too late for the Terminator franchise? Do you think they need to go a different direction with it? Fire back, of course. Let me know what you think, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate. Okay, well, I am running out of time, guys, so I'm going to skip over the parts in regards to Ant-Man 3 going to move forward at Marvel, and then, of course, the announcement of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sequel that is set for April 8th, 2022. Excited about both of those, but I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to skip over them. Of course, fire back on the social media groups, the Facebook group, Twitter. Let me know what you think about that stuff, guys, because we got to jump over and talk some HBO Max, okay? Tuesday night after, things were settling, or maybe in the afternoon, after I'd already done my show for the day, HBO Max came out and talked all about what they were doing. Gonna launch in May of next year, and they're coming out with their dukes up, ready to take on Disney Plus, ready to take on Peacock and Netflix and Hulu and all those other streaming services, because it looks like they got some good stuff. Now, first off, of course, Game of Thrones. We got the announcement last week that HBO had opted not to pick up the spin-off series, The Longest Night, in which I believe they've already shot the pilot. It was with Naomi Watts, and they decided not to pick it up. So that kind of, knocked people down a little bit. People were a little disappointed in that. But hours later, they came out and said that another spin-off series, House of Dragon, has been ordered straight to series. Now, this is going to be based off the book Fire and Blood, written by George R.R. Martin, a guy who has not finished the regular Game of Thrones book series yet, but had time to finish a spin-off kind of prequel book. The Fire and Blood I actually read a little bit of. It's one of those things where it's big, it's lengthy, and of course, I got maybe, I think, 100 pages in, and then I had to give the book back to the library. I'm excited for this, though. Again, being a Game of Thrones fan, I'm excited for this. I was looking forward, though, to The Longest Night, mainly because, to me, I want to see the Night's Watch at full force. I want to go back 1,000 years or whatever, when instead of the Night's Watch being a punishment for people, it was an honor to serve. I want to see the Wall being built. I want to see White Walkers, the Night's Watch, fighting them back as they build the Wall. Some magic going on so they don't pass the Wall. All that stuff. That's what I wanted to see. I thought it'd been cool. Instead, they're going another way. Instead of the ice, they're going the fire route. They're going to talk about the Targaryens, and we're going to see probably quite a few dragons and how they conquered Westeros and the world, which could be cool too. No doubt it could be cool. But, I was looking forward more towards the ice part of it, but that's fine. But anyway, so yeah, they pulled kind of a rope-a-dope on us, canceled one show and gave us another, both of which are going to be on HBO and HBO Max. Now, HBO Max, like I said, it's coming out in May. It's going to be $15. It's a amalgam of Warner Brothers and HBO, because HBO is owned by Time Warner, aka Warner Brothers. So you're going to get all the WB stuff like Friends, but also all the DC stuff too. They said all the live action DC comic-based films are going to be on there. I'm more interested in maybe getting some series on there. Right now I have DC Universe. If I can get the original series like Titans and Young Justice, as well as all the other films that are offered in DC onto HBO Max, I'll drop my DC Universe and go over to HBO Max, which I might just end up doing anyway, because yes, DC Universe has all the comics, but that's the least thing I do. I watch the original programming, and occasionally I'll watch, some movies and archive stuff they have on there. But if I can get that stuff, the films and the TV on HBO Max that are DC based as well, I'll just switch over to HBO Max and, drop my DC Universe, because I don't really read the comic. Any of the comics I would want to read, I pretty much have anyway. So that's what they had announced in the world of HBO and Game of Thrones when it came to HBO Max. Now, a couple other shows that they announced, one of them is Adam Strange. It's going to be called Strange Adventures, starring Adam Strange. Guys, of course, if you don't know Adam Strange, DC comic book based character. He was on Krypton, the sci-fi series. He was also in season 2 of Young Justice Invasion, heavily featured in that. I know him from the comic books too. I don't know a lot about him, to be honest, as far as comic book wise, but I do know him from Krypton and Young Justice, so I have a sense of who the character is. And this is, from what they said, basically him going around having strange adventures. They said, quote, "Strange Adventures is an anthology series that explores close-ended morality tales about the intersecting lives of mortals and superhumans. It will be a 1-hour series produced by Greg Berlanti, who helped launch CW's Arrowverse." Greg Berlanti, he's done some stuff in regards to his career. Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Black Lightning, all those superhero shows that have made up the Arrowverse. Greg Berlanti is the guy behind it all, so you got to give him props for that. He's also behind, I know, Riverdale and several other shows, so he's a guy who, can do some stuff, mainly CW stuff, but, DC definitely likes him because of what he's done in regards to Arrow, Flash, and the Arrowverse. So they're giving him a few more things to do. This Strange Adventures is going to be one of them. And I think it's going to be kooky, of course. And I'm looking forward to the kookiness of it. So that'll be cool. But the main one I want to talk about is Green Lantern. Yes, that is right. The Emerald Knights are getting their own TV show. Now, I say that because obviously Hal Jordan is the most famous of the Green Lanterns. But in doing a show instead of a movie, you can focus on all the Green Lanterns, which I'm excited about. Again, going to be produced by Greg Berlanti, and he talked to Entertainment Weekly about this, saying a Green Lantern-inspired show is in the works for HBO Max. It's what promises to be our biggest DC show ever made. We will be going to space with a Green Lantern television series, but I can't reveal any more about that just yet, said Berlanti. Okay, so am I excited about this? Yes, because I'm a fan of the Green Lantern story. Obviously, a lot of us are heavy Green Lantern fans because of what Jeff Johns did in bringing back Hal Jordan and widening the emotional spectrum with blue lanterns, orange lanterns, white lanterns, black lanterns, all that stuff. That's kind of the meat of what I am as a Green Lantern fan. I know Grant Morrison is doing his run right now. Not a huge fan of it, mainly because, I'm not a huge Grant Morrison fan, but I mainly stick with the Jeff Johns stuff. After he left, there was a couple of storylines that I enjoyed too, but I slowly lost interest. But again, one of those things I'm excited for is the fact that with a series, you don't have to just do a story about Hal Jordan. Yes, he can be the main character, but you can include other characters like Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Jon Stewart, and have a team. And that's one thing I loved about the Jeff Johns run was, when they got together for those events and it was all four of the Human Lanterns working as a team with their different personalities, different way of doing things. It was just so much fun to read about. But also you have all the other aliens like Kilowog in there. So much fun you can have with this. Of course, the number one concern, budget, okay? Green Lantern is a space cop, okay? He not only patrols Earth, he patrols all of Sector 2814. You can't just keep him on Earth. You got to send him out into space. You got to send him to Oa. You got to bring in the Guardians. With all of this, you got to have the budget to pull it off, is what it is. The Green Lantern film with Ryan Reynolds, yes, it was considered a flop. It wasn't that great, but the parts that were great were the parts where he was in space, where he was on Oa. That's the parts that worked, and I think that's the parts you need for a Green Lantern live-action series to work. You have the Green Lantern animated series, which honestly was too kiddie. When dealing with some material, I think you have to step it up. I would be fine if they announced that this was an animated series in the veins of like a Batman animated series, a Young Justice, something like that. But if they want to do a live action, you got to do it right. I mean, of course, all these shows now, they're getting their big budgets like Game of Thrones, Mandalorian. They're putting this as any kind of their flagship show in regards to their DC shows, and that's fine. I think there is a vast wealth of stories and character arcs in the Green Lantern mythology and characters, but again, if you don't do it right as regards to the scale of it and the budget of it, it's going to fall flat. So, do it right. Don't keep them on Earth. Send them out into space frequently. And just, it's going to be big. It's going to be expensive. But if you're going to do it right. Because if you don't do it right, all you're going to do is piss off fans like me. All right, guys. Well, I think that is all I have time for today. I'm pretty sure I've gone over. So I'm going to call it a day. But time for you to fire back, of course, in the social media groups, Facebook group, Twitter account, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. Let me know about any of the things I've talked about today. I know I covered a long variety of subjects, but fire back, of course. Like I said, all these are usually posted on the Facebook group, so you can comment underneath them below. That's where I do a lot of the talking with you guys, too. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys, of course, because it's a lot of stuff. Next week, of course, Disney Plus launches. Super excited, not only for Mandalorian, but all the other good stuff that's going to be happening on there as well. It's awesome, guys. It's just I'm in Star Wars mode, but also it's so much good stuff that's happening, and I'm just hoping that it's all going to turn out all right, because at this point, I already have too many shows and movies that I want to watch. Adding on top of that, I probably won't have time for other stuff as well, but the fact that this stuff is coming out makes me happy. It makes me so happy for that. But okay, you can find me personally, Slim Dayspring 12 on Twitter and Instagram if you want to talk about anything, of course, guys. But that's it. Go out, enjoy your week, enjoy your life, live your best life, and until next time, may the Force be with us all.